Hey everybody, I just wanted to go ahead and get started in the interest of time. Welcome to the June installment of the Monthly Coaching Club. I can't believe that the year is half over. It feels like it's flying by, at least to me. But before we get started today, I just wanted to talk a little bit about, obviously the year is half over. Those of you that get my newsletter, which I believe is all of you, you heard me mention this in our newsletter, where it's something that I want you guys to be aware of, and I want you guys to be mindful of the fact that, the year is half over. And so if you aren't on track to meet your goals, there's still time to adjust that, and there's still time to, make those tweaks and still knock your goals out of the park. I don't think because the year is half over that it means that where you are now is where you need to end up. So anybody that needs or wants some extra help getting their goals in place, accomplishing those goals, and the Monthly Coaching Club just isn't enough accountability for you. Just a reminder that I will be doing individual coaching sessions. So if you're interested in those, please, I'm going to just shoot in the chat here and we'll include in the bar. But if you shoot an email over to info@compasssouthconsulting.com, we'll definitely get you some more information about how to go about doing that and signing up for those. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, we're going to talk about community marketing. So community marketing is, I know that we mentioned this and we kind of covered this topic a little bit a few months ago when we had Katie Clancy join us back in April. And the reason why I wanted to include it again this month is I wanted to address it in kind of a different way. And what I mean by that is, community marketing in terms of what Katie was talking about is really looking for those places to be in your community. But what we're going to focus on today is, okay, then how do you leverage that presence within your community to create content and build an audience truly off of that? So that's something that I want to do with you guys. So keep that in mind as we go. So what is community marketing as we think of it, and why is it such an important strategy? Well, these were two answers that I got when I asked some experts about it. And the first is community marketing is a strategy to engage an audience in an active, non-intrusive prospect customer conversation. So it's a strategy to engage that audience, whoever that audience may be, in a conversation rather than just let me generate this lead, then let me convert this lead. I really like community marketing for this reason, and I think that it really resonates with a lot of the folks that are registered in the Monthly Coaching Club because this is very much your approach to the business. The other answer I got I thought was interesting as well. Unlike regular marketing that focuses simply on generating customers, community marketing focuses on perceived needs of existing and potential customers. So what is the difference with community marketing? Well, community marketing is geared towards providing value to a target audience. So with marketing, as you guys will recall, I talked about marketing is just an effort to get somebody to take the next step with you in their process, whatever that next step may be. Well, not only are we focusing on that here, but we're focusing on, okay, who are these people that I'm targeting? What do they find valuable? And how can I deliver that value to them in a thoughtful way? So that's why I love community marketing. So when we think of community marketing, one of the most important things to do is to define our target audience. And the better that you can define your audience, the more compelling content you're capable of sharing. So when I talk about defining your target audience, I talk about it in a really broad way. So obviously you're not going to violate, fair housing restrictions and things like that, but it's also okay when you're thinking about your target audience to essentially come up with an avatar. And what I mean by that is come up with, if you could describe your ideal client, who would that be and what would it look like? He or she look like? So, would they be a millennial? Are they into downtown living, or do they prefer the suburbs, or do they even like rural living? Are they, into a certain type of house? Or a lot of your clients, fans of mid-century modern, or are a lot of your clients, you know, really into new construction? And then also kind of taking it to the next level of saying, okay, now that I have this target audience defined, now where are some of the places that these people go? Are they going out to coffee shops on a regular basis? Are they commuters that live in the suburbs but commute downtown for work? Are they sports fans? Are they young and going to happy hours, or older and looking for a more relaxed lifestyle? All of these things matter, and the reason why they matter is sometimes in marketing we shy away from asking these questions or defining our audience in this way because it does walk a very fine line when it comes to fair housing. Now, that said, it also allows you to deliver the most compelling content, because when you think about who someone is as a human, you are able to deliver the best content to that person. So if you take, for example, you know, I could have two best friends. Well, two of my best friends, I've got one best friend that I grew up with that lives in New York City. She's into fashion and jewelry, and she's, you know, that's who she is. She lives that sort of lifestyle. And then my other best friend, who I went to college with out in Oklahoma, still lives in Oklahoma in the suburbs near the University of Oklahoma. She has two young kids. She lives a very family lifestyle. And, you know, those two people, despite having that one thing in common, they couldn't be more different. So sending them both the same message just doesn't fall in line with something that both of them might find valuable. So that's what I mean when I talk about defining a target audience, is think about who's going to be receiving the message, and are they going to receive it in a positive light? If not, should you tweak content? And the key about target audiences is it is not an exclusionary thing. So when you define your target audience, it doesn't mean that you can't include some other folks. It doesn't mean that you can't have a very broad audience. What it means is, if you're going to have a broad audience, you might need to have a few different types of messaging so that your message will resonate with the variety of audiences that you're working with. But the advice that I give all my clients is, it's great to have a really defined target audience. And the reason why it's great is, if you're defining it, and if you have a clear picture of who you want to work with and who you work best with, you'll oftentimes be predicting in a fairly accurate way who wants to work with you and who will resonate or who will view with a positive light all of the messages that you're delivering. So that's really important as well. Think about the type of housing that you want to work in, and the type of person that you want to work with, and the sort of things that they enjoy. And again, it is okay to speak to this very defined audience, mostly because when you speak to the defined audience, you're going to provide better content to them. So let's go through some effective strategies for community marketing. Well, the first one is, don't pitch, participate. So after you've found a community that feels like home, and after you've defined that target audience, my advice is focus on them. Stick to the people that you like to work with, and the targets that you want to work with, and the neighborhoods that you understand. When you're participating in your community, you're part of that. You don't just know what's happening, you're part of what's happening. And when you can become part of what's happening, you put yourself on equal footing with your potential prospects. And so it doesn't come off as salesy or pushy. It comes off as, this is my neighbor, this is my friend who also happens to sell real estate, instead of, this is my real estate agent who happens to live in this neighborhood. That's it. You want people to look at it the other way around. You want to be a fixture in your community so that you don't have to pitch, so that they'll just be aware of what you're doing, and that you can just have the conversations with the very serious prospects. The second tip I have is, contribute like an expert, which frankly you are. When you're participating in your community, you want to showcase your expertise in thoughtful ways. So how can you add to the conversation or things that are happening in your community in a way that's consistent with your brand? So the question that I encourage you guys to ask yourselves is, what do you want your business to be known for? And once you know what you want your business to be known for, then you're able to say, okay, this is how I can contribute and provide value to my community. And I know what I'm talking about. So that way you're not just delivering information based only on what people are asking for. You're delivering information that you're really educated on, and you are the expert in those things. And so when new things come to a neighborhood, you can speak thoughtfully and accurately about those neighborhoods and how that may impact those neighborhoods. So that's really, really important. My third tip is be accessible. So a lot of agents struggle with this because in our day and age and in our industry, we're constantly moving, and it's difficult to stay still and be accessible to the people that aren't ready to have their house sold or to buy a house. And the key here is when you're communicating with people in your community and communicating authentically and offering value here, you want to be focused on what they find valuable versus trying to pitch. So this kind of goes back to our first point of don't pitch, participate. But in terms of being accessible, you want to be that neighborhood resource. So even if you don't commonly work with renters, you don't want to alienate any type of potential prospect. You don't want to alienate a renter, or you don't want to alienate somebody that lives in a certain part of the city or whatever it may be, for a slew of reasons, but not least of which is in real estate or really any entrepreneur industry or path, you don't know where all of your business is going to come from. You have a general idea. You can refine that obviously with your target audience, but you want to be accessible as a resource, not necessarily as constantly pitching these folks, but to be accessible as a resource, where when somebody has a question about something that a landlord is potentially doing or something going on with their housing, they want to come to you. That's the person that you want to be in your community. The next tip, ask your audience. So a lot of us underestimate the power of the ask. A lot of us are a little bit reluctant to ask our clients, what could I have done better? Or what would you like to see out of my process? And the reason why we're reluctant to do this is we sometimes don't want to know the answer, but sometimes it's that we already think that we know. We think that we have an idea of, okay, this is the best content to provide them. And even if it is the best content realistically, and it's accurately the best content to provide them, you want to be sure that you're asking your clientele, because again, it's all about their perception. So for instance, I liken this oftentimes, I'll use the analogy of, if I serve dinner to my kids and I put broccoli on their plate and it's the best thing for them on the plate, it doesn't matter that it's the best thing for them on the plate if I also put a big spoonful of mac and cheese, because the mac and cheese is what they find valuable. It's all in the value that people assign to whatever the topic is. So not only do you have to provide real value, you have to provide the broccoli, you also have to provide the things people like and the things people want to talk about. So that's why the companies like Zillow and Realtor.com do so well when they're providing, data on reality TV show housing and things like that, and celebrity housing. Is people want to read about this stuff. They want to know the inside scoop about restaurants that are coming in and things that are happening in their community. So that's really, really important to consider for you guys. Next tip. The next tip is use community advertising, but differently. So the great point about community advertising is oftentimes we think of community advertising as like sponsorships or, putting our name on, the school flyer, the back of the baseball jerseys or soccer jerseys or whatever it may be. And while that is community advertising, instead of viewing traditional advertising, think about ways to cross promote within your community. Because when you're promoting somebody else's business, you're likely to gain higher levels of engagement rather than when you're kind of puffing your chest out and doing your own personal promotion. That personal promotion, people find a little bit alienating, where if you can get people talking about something happening on your business page, but something happening in the community and the conversation is happening on your business page, it's just as good as if they're just having that conversation with you or a conversation with you on your business page, because it's all happening in the same place. And the other thing is it starts to get people to know you. So, excuse me. Excuse me. Sorry, I have a little tickle in my throat. The same way that we try to get people to know ourselves and understand who we are and our story, we're also trying to get people to know what are the things that we like, what are the things, where are the places that we frequent. And cross-promotional activities can really be a good way to kind of show what your brand is about more than just the numbers. So I think that's important. And lastly, be consistent. So we've talked pretty much every month about the point that consistency is what matters. So in the same effect of, if you're not able to watch these videos or attend these trainings at each month, they're not going to be as effective as if you do. It's the same thing with anything. If you say that you're going to write a newsletter and you only do it once every 6 months, nobody's going to read it because they're not used to it coming. And so that's the key. You have to be consistent. In order to be a fixture in your community, you have to consistently be in your community and share in your community and participate. So that's going to be super important when you start rolling out this strategy. So what sort of content is great to share? So a lot of people will ask me, and Marguerite and Alyssa, who are going to be on the Masters series next week, they'll talk a lot about this. But what sort of content is great to share is all about, okay, so once I'm in my community and I'm doing these things, so once you are the Katie Clancy's of the world and you're out and you're about and you're in your community and you are that fixture in your community, how do you leverage that to market to an audience and market to your target audience? I mean, it's not like everybody's going to see you out at the parks and the bars and the restaurants and the shops all the time. So how do you leverage doing those things and participating in your community in a way that can grow the reach? And oftentimes that happens, and probably most commonly that happens through a variety of ways, but through either blogging, so having some sort of blog, having some sort of newsletter, or doing some sort of like video along with social media. All of those mediums are great ways to share this content. But what sort of content is great to share? Well, neighborhood guides can be really, really great. The reason why neighborhood guides are so effective is people can find the house without you. They can search bedrooms and bathrooms, and they can go to Zillow or Realtor.com or any number of websites and find a house that could be suitable for them without you. They could probably even figure out how to go and see that house without you. But what they can't figure out, because if they go and they do that and they go with the listing agent, they likely won't know this or figure this out, is oftentimes they can't figure out, how do I go about doing this and understand what is it going to be like to live in this neighborhood? This is an especially compelling way to capture relocation buyers. And also, it's a really effective way to market to sellers, because they really will understand what your neighborhood expertise is. And when I talk about neighborhoods as content, I'm talking about them more than just this is like the market stats in this neighborhood. I'm talking about it saying, okay, this is something that, like, these are the best restaurants in this neighborhood. This is where the local fire station is in this neighborhood. Here's a link to school information in this neighborhood. Or, you know, these are some community events happening in this neighborhood. All of this stuff is really valuable content. And it's content that a lot of us know, we just haven't compiled and put in one thoughtful place. So Leslie Heindel from Crescent City Living in New Orleans, she has a website called beneworleans.com. She's done this really effectively, where she's done some fantastic all-encompassing neighborhood guides where, I really have a feel of what it would be like to live in the Garden District of New Orleans, or in certain neighborhoods in New Orleans, without ever being there, because she's painted such a vivid picture. So that's really key. Community events are also really great content to share. So community events really show that you know what's happening in the community, but it's also great content to share because oftentimes it's not your own created content. You're just telling people about what's happening somewhere, and so it's not super time consuming. Another great type of content to share are bargains, so great deals. So great deals also, in a very soft way, showcase your market knowledge and showcase that you really know what's happening in the market. It also gets people, part of what people love about real estate are looking at the beautiful pictures in the houses, and that's why there's been such a rise of HGTV and all of these things. So showing people off all of these great houses and these great deals. Like I had a client who a few years ago, what they actually did was they photographed and asked owners permissions, but they photographed some really cool, unique properties, and they did a list of like their 5 favorite houses in the market that are not on the market. And it was a really compelling blog series because people like reading about what they can't have. That's why we like watching reality TV and have an obsession with celebrities. So all of this stuff is really compelling content to share. Seasonal guides to your community. So this is a perfect one, especially at this current juncture where we're launching into summer. So showing people where like community pools are, excuse me, where the best place to watch the fireworks on the 4th of July, or a variety of those sort of topics. Where can people get the best ice cream or snow cones or whatever they want to do for summer? People are looking for these things. And the idea when you're thinking about what sort of content is great to share is think about what are these things that people Google and search for. So like every parent in the world right now with kids that just got out of school is probably Googling like things to do with your kids in the summer in Raleigh or in Chicago or wherever you may be. And that's the sort of stuff that they're doing. If you can come up with blog posts or videos or content that show off all of these things, and then it also mentions that you're in real estate, sure, that person's probably not buying the house from you immediately because you told them, about a cool place to go in the summer with their kids, but it's building that credibility. It's continuing to show up in their feed and in their community, and you are showing that you know what you're talking about and you know about the product that you're selling, because let's admit it, the product that we're selling is not just the houses, it's not just the bedrooms and the bathrooms, it's also the places where we live. Life happens very much so outside of the 4 walls, and normally more than 4 walls, but outside of the walls of our homes, it happens in the communities where we live. And so people want that sort of content. Another great one is like, you've seen a lot of best of lists, like the best things in Raleigh or the best burger in Raleigh or whatever it may be. I love this idea of secrets of your city. So like things that not a lot of people know about. These might be like the small hole in the walls, or the cool movie series that shows at a local park, or whatever that may be, but things that aren't always talked about. This is a fantastic way to show your local knowledge, because it's showcasing something that's not readily available. People can't find it a whole lot, and if they could, it wouldn't be a secret of their city. It would just be their city. And lastly, government and civic information. So government websites are remarkably difficult to navigate. And so one of the things that I strongly recommend to a lot of folks is making this information easily accessible through your website can be really, really helpful. So telling people where to go, if they did, like how to set up their utilities with the local community, showing people, like doing blog posts of places to register to vote and where polling locations are. Even if you're linking out to other people's content, this is really fantastic content to share because it's in demand. And keep in mind, when you're sharing this content, it's not like you're writing a blog post and you're setting it and you're forgetting it and you're not promoting it. You're hosting all of this stuff on your website through your blog or hosting those videos on your website somehow or on your YouTube account. And you're constantly driving traffic back to your website. So remember, this is kind of the door, you opening the door to them getting to know you. So you're probably going to promote that post on social media of some sort and get it out to your audience in addition to just writing that blog post. So keep in mind, it's not awkward to have, polling locations link on your website and then share it close to election day. That's actually really useful information because oftentimes elections happen so infrequently that people forget where they're supposed to vote. And sometimes these change in between elections. That's fantastic content to share. Talking about even things like school information falls in here. So sharing school district calendars right before school kicks off. All of this stuff is really helpful to the local community around you. And that stuff on a day-to-day basis is what provides value. Because let's talk just real honestly for a second about what value is to 99% of your consumers. Well, 99% of your consumers may not be in the market to buy or sell a home right now. So you need to think, what sort of content are they going to continue to find valuable between when they purchase their home with me and when they're ready to sell? And this is that sort of content. So just keep all that in mind as you're looking to shape your strategy. So one of my big tips was being consistent. So how do you stay consistent with this? So I'm going to come back to this concept of building out a content calendar here in just a moment. And I'm actually going to focus on the last two first. So incorporate information from other sources. So just like I was saying with linking out to, school calendars or government polling locations or community events, you don't have to self-source all of this information. It's unnecessary to do that. And honestly, the people that try and fail most often try to do that because they're reinventing the wheel and they're saying, I'm going to self-create all this stuff. That's a waste of time. Let's talk about how can you be efficient with your time. Well, you can be efficient with your time because there's organizations and government entities and so forth and so on that are personally dedicated to creating this sort of content for the local community. So simply sharing that more effectively can be a really great way to get that information out there. And it can help a whole lot when you're pressed for time. So the problem with self-creating 100% of our content, and let me be clear, it's about sharing that content. It's not about claiming that content as your own. So you cannot copy and paste from another source and claim that you prepared that. That's dishonest. But what you can do is say, for a list, I've got some of this list from here, and you can source that information. You can link out to information. You can host that information on your website as well. People love getting their content shared. They just don't love getting it stolen. So there is a fine line here. So keep that in mind. Now back to building out a content calendar. So this is an example of what a rough content calendar can look like. Those of you that have ever done the holiday hustle with me know that I'm pretty serious about content calendars. And content calendars are really useful because in real estate, let's be honest, it's so rare that we can have a month or 2 months and have it be at all predictable. the market changes, our levels of business change. There's some weeks that we're super busy. It gets ridiculously hard to self-create that content on a regular basis and follow through with it and stay consistent with it if you don't have a plan. And the reason why it gets so much more difficult is you're not only reserving out that time to create that content, you're carving out that time to think of what should my topic be. So just as I talk about with time management, remove the what's next part and try and have a rough idea. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to follow through with that idea. It just means that if all else fails, you've got a topic that you can write about. So how does this work? Well, I recommend having about 8 pieces of content a month, which is about 2 per week. And I know that that seems like a lot, but let me break it down for you. So about half of that, so 4 pieces of that content should be pre-planned, meaning you're going to go ahead and say, okay, in January, I'm going to have 4 pieces of content that are pre-planned, and these are going to be my topics. Or maybe you just have one overarching topic and you're sharing different elements of it in your various mediums. That can work too. But you're only planning out about half of it, and then the other half you're leaving for more timely discussion. So that sort of content might be, check out this neat feature in my new listing, or check out this beautiful view at this restaurant, or look at this new feature on this this development that's going in down the street. All of that content pops up. And so when we have that content pop up, we do need to reserve a space for it in our marketing strategy without saying, okay, we're completely abandoning our other stuff. Because again, we want to stay consistent, so we want to be able to remove some of the headspace out of it. So I think that a great strategy for this is to say, okay, go about blogging. So I think blogging is a great place to start. It tends to be something that people are more comfortable with than video because they don't have to get in front of the camera. If you are more comfortable with video, it is fine for video to replace blogging in this day and age. However, video is difficult to stay consistent with, again, because if you're running around, people get self-conscious about how they look and what they're doing, and you have to be mindful of you're going to need to be putting out these videos on a fairly regular basis. If you commit to blogging, I suggest doing it at least monthly. And at least monthly is mostly because that's a pretty easy schedule to keep. So a monthly blog post going on would be 12 a year, which is not all that difficult to execute. In fact, during slow months, you could probably get away with writing a few blogs at once and just slowly dripping those out over time. I also suggest having a newsletter monthly. And the newsletter isn't just going to be rattling off all of your listings. Again, the newsletter has to incorporate content that people are going to find valuable and want to share and want to engage with. So one of the things that you can incorporate in your newsletter is your blog. That's something that I do, is I also pull my blog off of my blog. I redirect it back using my website. But I'm also writing extra content in there that people can read about in order to have another way to engage with people. And then this other content that you can use to supplement it is most often going to be social content. So that's going to be your Facebook and your Instagram and your Twitter and all of these other methods. It's also going to be texting and other emails. There's a difference here between communication and marketing though. So this is going to be much more of, focusing on delivering information that people find valuable as opposed to simply just communicating things that need to be communicated with. So I did not want to go super deep into community content community marketing, because honestly, our master's series on Monday is going to blow you guys out of the water. When it comes to community marketing, there are 2 people that I ask about almost any question to, and that is Marguerite Martin and Alyssa Christensen. I actually have their names mixed up here. So Alyssa is there on the left, and Marguerite is there on the right. But these two are outside of Tacoma, or in Tacoma, Washington, outside of Seattle. And they have really taken community marketing to another level in a few different ways. So not only do they have a fantastic community marketing strategy that they execute with one another, but they're teaching agents how to do it. So Marguerite and Alyssa actually run a course called the Community Marketing Course. You can look it up on Google. And I believe they run it twice a year. And the course is designed to help you do everything that we talked about, to define your target audience, to come up with the sort of content that's great to share, to come up with that content with your audience in mind so that you can ensure that you're sharing content that people are going to love. So you guys are not going to want to miss this. Marguerite and Alyssa really are the experts when it comes to community marketing. We will have them on the Master Series on Monday. That's this coming Monday, June 18th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And trust me, you guys, you are not going to want to miss this. So until then, I will see you guys soon. Thanks for tuning in. I love working with you guys as always. If you have any questions, just let me know. This is obviously going to be up for recordings later today, but I am always happy to work with you guys. So just feel free to drop me a line if you have any questions about anything we talked about. Other than that, I will see you guys on Monday. Thanks so much, guys. Have a great day.